So I'm doing a night theme video. This is when it gets late at night and I turn off the lights and I just have this kind of ghostly look. Maybe it's kind of silly to do it this way, but I like to keep the sort of sitting around the campfire, flickering faces in the campfire look, and I try to keep these kind of intimate. I'm clear that we can move on to other formats. Like I don't have to keep doing these like this. They all kind of have a look and a feel, and I am aiming for some level of continuity. So tonight we were looking at how do you present a business model, like a model of a business, through pandas. And here's an example of somebody using a notebook to do that. But you can also hide a lot of the code. And like here's an article where only little bits of the code and mainly the graphics are showing up. So the article is kind of one level above the Jupyter Notebook. And the Jupyter Notebook likewise doesn't have to be the deepest level. So what I show in some of tonight's code, for example, when I compute the volumes of these shapes, it's not like my students always care about shapes or geometry. It's just we need some grist for the mill. We just need to show one level below, one level behind the Jupyter Notebook is where to put a lot of code that users are free to look at but don't have to, because what they're mainly interested in is the final product. Now this came from a REPL IT that I've used for some years now to show the whole number volumes, as they're called. Some of them are not whole number, being computed as Koski identities, 5-scaled S modules and stuff. So I'm thinking, that's just throwing away data. It's going to print, console, then what? So we need something to capture that data and put it in a Jupyter Notebook and also in a Pandas data frame. So I rewrote that program over here to create a empty Pandas data frame and then fill in all the blanks and number it down the side. And when I run this top level, it does do a simple print, the same one as before, because actually I just cut and pasted that part of the code, but it's also building the data table every time. Even if I just import it, it builds the data table. So if we look at it, say on, I'm looking for my GitHub site. So where do I have that now? Here we go. So it looks different, right? Because GitHub's a little bit different styling and so on, but it's the same volumes table, the one that you understand by now, right? Especially if you're in a military academy. So we have discipline, right? All right, so I showed this code as an example of how we can spare our readers a lot of nitty-gritty details, because sometimes they just want to go through the flow of the higher logic and not have to like dive into proofs or whatever it is, right? So your Jupyter Notebook tends to be floating above a more maybe detailed and more nitty-gritty piece of work. And that's where a machine learning library would also, third-party stuff like PyTorch and TensorFlow, those would be likewise behind the scenes, right? Deep code there. And I'm saying we need to, some extent, join the third-party world with our own modules. Like as we learn Python, we too begin to publish Python modules, and I have a lot of those out there for sharing, and sometimes they're behind a Jupyter Notebook, supporting the Jupyter Notebook. So I think you understand that the theme here in the School of Tomorrow lecture, as it has been for a little while, is how do you distinguish between the role of longer computer programs of the traditional kind and these little snippets of code that we're seeing in these new notebook formats. And there's room for both. A lot of the time we're going to write longish programs, but we're going to create artifacts such as data frames that we just import and start using at a higher level. I don't think this is big news if you've been around this technology, but if you're just getting used to, quote, the calculator of tomorrow, this might be good advice. So take it for what it's worth, and we'll talk to you soon.